everybody. I want to thank Sarah and Penny for inviting me here today to talk with you about capital. My name is Mary Louise Helbig. Most people just call me ML, so that's fine. Short and simple. I'm a neighbor, so I'm from up the road. I live in Golden Eagle, Illinois. Love coming down here. We spend, of course, a lot of time here in Alton, eating, shopping, exploring, and all the good stuff that this wonderful community has to offer. I'm very excited about the Main Street focus and the focus on growing and getting small businesses set up in this wonderful community. So I am, again, thankful to be here today with you to talk about capital and where small business can find capital and what's appropriate and what opportunities exist. It's not an easy topic, it's complex, but I'll say that it's complex in a good way. It's complex because there's a lot out there, so that's a good thing, right? Yes. But what we're going to talk more about today is about you as business owners. How do you find it and what's right for you? Mm-hmm. Because that is really the important question. And those questions are really about you understanding your business and your business needs. So you've got to answer those questions first in order to find out what capital is going to be best for you and your business. So today what we're going to talk about, and we're projecting back here because I think it's probably better for everybody to see, but thinking about what are your needs, right? So I talked a little bit at the beginning about, I think the most important part of this is really understanding for your business what your needs are and what you're trying to accomplish, and making sure you have good grasp of that in order to figure out what is the best option for you to go forward. Because there are many, 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 many options. And the worst thing you can do, and I've seen it, is you go down the wrong path and you spend a lot of time and effort working, the wrong, source or whatever. So we don't want you to do that because your time is valuable. So we'll talk about your needs. We'll talk about the different sources of capital and the types there are and the considerations that you should be aware of, because not everything, as I said, is the same. Being prepared and understanding, not only getting your paperwork and your business plan and your financials in order, but then also understanding you're going to be making a commitment to someone, and there are strings attached. Whether it's a loan, whether it's an equity investor, whether it's a grant, you are making a commitment, and you're expected to live up to those commitments. The thing that everybody I know loves to do is writing business plans, right? But the reality is, I'm going to tell you right here and right now, you have to have a business plan. And it's not just for the bank or the investor, it really is for you. And it goes back to that very first question. If you are thinking about buying a building, can you really afford to buy a building? What is that going to take? So the unfun, ugly work of writing a business plan, you just are going to have to swallow that bitter pill, and you're going to need it. But I'm going to give you some help and resources around how to do that in a way that just doesn't make you want to run screaming out of this room, because there are ways to do it and do it effectively. And then at the end we'll wrap up with just helpful resources. So kind of two buckets of helpful resources, and that is, how do you learn and prepare for finding and sourcing capital, and so writing a business plan perhaps, or finding a mentor in the community that can help you. If you don't know how to do business financials, how do you do that? Maybe you're really strong in marketing, but you're not strong in financial. There are resources that can help you do that. And then in the end, the big $1 million question is, where do I get money, right? Okay. So with that, we will get started. So let me ask, so when you think about your business, I think there's key things that you just need to keep top of mind. So what I want you to think about right now is, what stage is your business at? So we've got people that have an idea that they want to explore, somebody that doesn't even maybe have an idea yet but wants to learn and You know, somebody else who has had an existing business, and so you probably have customers and revenue. Okay, those things fit into different buckets, and different sources of capital will talk to you at different stages or not talk to you at different stages. So this is something, and you'll see as we talk about like loan types and things like that, that there are even equity investors. Equity investors, people say, oh, I want to go to a venture capital firm and I want them to give me $1 million to build out my idea. Venture capitalists don't invest in ideas. Okay, they invest in companies that have a product and have demonstrated traction. And that comes in the form, their measurements are numbers of customers or revenue. So if you have an idea that's a beautiful idea, you don't start chasing venture capitalists. Right. That would be a big, big waste of time. So things like that. So making sure that you're aware of, you know, and there's typically like 5 stages of business. So it's idea, concept, so you have an idea in your head, but you don't have anything yet. Concept validation, you have a product and you're testing it in the marketplace and you're getting validation. And then scaling, early stage scaling, which is really taking the product to market and getting your first customers using the product, starting to generate revenue, and then growth. So, and you can Google, you know, what are the stages of a company, and just understand those, because when you're talking to people, they're going to say, what stage are you at, you know, and be able to answer that. So if your business has been around for many years, and you have customers, and you have product, then you would fit in the growth stage. And that you're a good example of that, right? So yes. You're it's not, there isn't any more question about whether you have a product that anybody wants. Yours is, I've got a product that people want. How do I get it out there to more people and grow my business? Yeah. Right? Yep. Okay, so understanding stage of business. How many of you, well, you kind of already told me that, but so some idea stage, some existing businesses, some that are in growth mode. So kind of across the spectrum. The other thing is when you think about yourself, you need to answer the question, what type of business am I? So there are different categories of business. And why this is important is because different sources of capital are typically focused on certain types of business. So are you a service business? Are you a hospitality business? Are you a retail business? Are you in tech? Are you in healthcare? La, 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 la. So understanding again then how you fit into the picture of the business world, and understanding that somebody that invests in tech companies is probably not going to want to talk to these guys about their custom guitar shop. It just isn't what they do, right? Yeah. And it's not the space they're in, and it's not their expertise. So don't go there. Mm-hmm. All right? The next question you have to ask yourself is, how much money do I need and how am I going to use that money? And this is critically important, and it'll tie back into your business plan and your financials. So if you say, I need $500,000 to buy this building and the equipment and to furnish it, la 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 la, then you've got to look at that in your financials to see how that works, right? And what are kind of the key metrics that go around that. So if you're going to ask somebody to give you money, they're going to want you to tell them, how are you going to use my money, right? They just don't, because they like your face or think you're funny or like your idea, they're going to say, all right, you're going to start this custom guitar business. What is this money going to? And you've got to be prepared to answer that question. Is it going to hiring people? Is it going to hiring the guitar? I don't know, do you have custom-made guitars? Yeah. Yeah, the craftsmen, designers. Is it going to marketing? Is it going to equipment, a building, payroll? So when you're going to make that ask, you've got to be prepared to give the supporting information behind that. And then the big Willy Wonka golden ticket is, what's the upside? What does that buy me? In other words, if I'm the person you're coming to and you're asking me for money, and you say, Mary Louise, give me $500,000. I need to understand, okay, not only is it to hire the craftsmen, but if you hire 2 craftsmen, and you do marketing, and you have this launch of the new business, how is that going to generate revenue, create more product? So the story has to tie together. So types of capital. Typically, I mean, most all of us are familiar with debt. That is where you go and you ask somebody for money, they give you a loan, it's over a defined period of time, it has interest attached to it, and you got to pay that back, right? I mean, that's kind of, you know, pretty classic. They're short and long term. But then, as I said before, there are many, many options for debt financing. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. The other one is equity. And equity is really about giving someone stocks in your company, ownership of your business for their money. Okay? So there isn't a loan necessarily associated with that. It's not like, okay, now you got to start paying me. Equity financing is really more about they have ownership in the company because they believe in you. Maybe ultimately down the road you'll provide a return or you'll sell the business and there's huge upside and they make their money back then. Okay, so when we think about equity and debt is really about having those loan payment obligations, and equity is about ownership dilution, because you're going to give somebody a percentage of your business through stock ownership, so that because they're going to give you the funding you need to move it forward. Okay, and then there's another bucket I'll call other for now, but it doesn't fit kind of the classic example of debt or equity. Maybe a little bit of a blend in some ways, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so here's a really busy slide. So when I was talking about debt and the options that you have, I think there's some key things to know about different instruments or tools that are used in debt financing. So let's start out with the basic one is really a small business short-term loan. And that is you go in somewhere and you say, I need $50,000, $100,000 to stand up my business. And they look at you and they say, okay, you got to pay that back in roughly 1 to 3 years with interest, you know, usually around 8%. But with these types of loan comes obligations from you. So some of the really small ones, maybe like $5,000 and things like that, if you have good credit, you may be able to get those without, you know, providing a guarantee. But if you don't, or the number's bigger, then you might have to sign personally for it. And I'm going to run through this because then we can just kind of talk about some of the characteristics. The SBA is a government, Small Business Administration is a government organization that supports small business growth, because small businesses employ create 90% of the new jobs. So small business is critical to our economy. So that's a wonderful thing, and our government gets behind the Small Business Administration and offers different loan options. These are just 3 of them. There's a 7A, a 504, there's an express loan. I think the big thing to take away with is it's a great resource for you, and they can do loans that are very small, like $5,000, into the millions, as much as $5 million. Now, the challenge with the SBA is, the other wonderful thing is their interest rates are really low. Mm-hmm. So their interest rates are going to be lower than probably any of these other loan options we talk about. So under like 5%, you know. So that's another wonderful thing. The challenge with the SBA is, what is it? A government entity. Guess what? The paperwork is arduous, you know, so you better have a lot of patience and time, because they don't turn them around as fast as some of the other options for getting loans. So they have some great and wonderful options. Some of them require personal guarantees, other ones don't. But just be very aware, and the low interest rates are phenomenal, but just be very aware the paperwork is a nightmare. I mean, it's just really tedious. and time. So tedious and time on the SBA, but low interest rates. Yes?
What's the typical time frame for that loan type?
It depends upon the loan. And you know, how long. But say, a lot of these that we're going to talk about, I would say, you know, you can go through, some of these you can apply online and you can get approved in a day and get money, boom. SBA, some of their processing of the approval process can take place relatively quickly, but you might not see the money for a month or 2 or 3. So that's another consideration. So if you need money today, just be aware and look at the different loan instruments, but they're not typically going to be your fastest on turnaround and getting the cash in your account.
Gotcha.
Business line of credit, you'll hear people talk about this. This is a revolver, so it acts like kind of like a credit card. So you go through the process and you get approved, and then you have money available to you. So unlike a traditional loan where, let's say you get approved for $100,000 and the bank gives you $100,000 and you put it in your account, the business line of credit kind of sits there like your credit card, where you've got, let's say you're approved on your credit card for up to $10,000 in spending. You don't necessarily use it and take it all at once. The good thing about this too is you use it when you need it, and so if your business has seasonality, you can go in and take it when you need it, but you don't have to take it if you don't need it. So it's kind of like a safety net for you as well. Pretty quick processing. They range from $5,000 to $2 million, and the rates are around 6%. But as you can see, this is for a business that has a credit rating established, and so it's got to be around 650 on the business credit rating. Be in business for 2 years and have annual revenue of over $180,000. So this is why when we talked earlier, what stage are you at? You know, this is why it's important to look at these requirements. Merchant cash advance is an interesting one, again, for an established business. This one is really taking a loan out on your receivables. So if you're going to get this, they're going to ask you for probably about a half a year's worth of bank statements and receivables, and you can then borrow against that. So again, this is something for an established business, but notice the interest rates on this. Now all these interest rates and things, I'll just say verify, because you know they change over time, and you know, but at least these are point of reference. But look at the interest rate on that. It's 18%. That's expensive money. And then the next one is purchase of receivables, or if you've heard the term, has anybody heard the term factoring before? Yeah, okay. So this is one where you actually are selling your receivables that are outstanding. So let's say it's to a bank, so in different organizations offer factoring. So you would you can sell as much as 80% of your receivables. So you've already had that transaction with the customer, you sold them the product, and they owe you money. So they're outstanding receivables. So the bank or whoever your provider is will buy those. They in effect become the collection agency too. So that's kind of something to be aware of. Do you want them to all of a sudden have a relationship with your customers? Because now what they're going to do is go out and make sure that they collect on all those receivables. So the thing about that is it's based on a completed transaction, but notice the interest rate on this can be like around 5%. And then the last one, I kind of, equipment financing, sorry. So even for me, when I always thought about equipment financing, I always thought about, oh, this is like for the forklift company that's going to go out and buy, 5 more forklifts to sell, or or use, or something tangible. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily the case with this. So this one, I just want to say, be aware that when people talk about equipment financing, they actually will finance things that help your business operations, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a tangible piece of equipment. It could be a software platform or something like that that is core to your business operations. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then the terms on this one will depend upon what it is that you're buying. And like anything else, you know, when you buy a car, you can get a loan anywhere from 2 years to 6 years, or, you know, so depending upon what the equipment is and the life of the equipment, that's what will start to set up the terms of the loan as far as the duration and things like that. They're not going to give you a 20-year loan on something that has life of 1 year, right? So that kind of thing. Okay, and then our last one is yourself, you know, so you could put things on credit cards, which a lot of startup companies do. I kind of threw a home equity loan. If you have equity built up in your home, you can borrow against that. And those two are really quick processes. Is, you know, as quick as you can fill out a credit card application, you can get a loan, right? And if you have good standing on your home equity loan at your bank, call up your banker and they'll tell you probably right on the phone what, you know, how much of a loan you can get and, you know, what the term and interest rates are going to be. So that's a lot of information. I decided also to put it kind of in chart form too, because it might help to see it, but you can just see the amounts of the loans vary significantly. The terms and the interest rates also vary, anywhere from, you know, maybe 5% on factoring all the way up to 24% on a credit card. If you're going to put something on a credit card based on your credit history and such. The terms, you know, 1 to 5 years, maybe on the equipment loan even longer. And then the turnaround times, you know, days to weeks to months. So again, as you're thinking about your business and what your needs are, when do you need that money? And, you know, how quickly can you get it? Let's see, anything else? I think, you know, some of the unique things are the factoring is, you know, that's a really unique opportunity, and you can get money at a pretty low rate, but it's that nuance of now your customer's dealing with a bank and not you on paying their bills.
Right.
So that just adds a kind of dynamic into your business that I think is a really important consideration. Any questions? Okay, equity. So we talked about, you know, the obligation of debt and paying people back. Equity is giving up ownership of your business in order to get access to capital. And so in the earlier stage startup world, there's kind of 3 buckets of equity financing that I kind of look at. Initially, and starting from like the very beginning, where you have probably nothing and you might have an idea in your head and you're really trying to get started, a lot of people get money from what we call friends and family, right? So they go to their brothers or sisters or parents or friends and they say, I have this great idea, back me up. And that's usually, you know, anywhere, could be $5,000, usually in total maybe up to about $100,000, unless you have really rich friends and family, and you can go with that. But that's, again, it's from a stage standpoint, it's usually around the idea concept stage of where a business is, and the dollar amounts are usually 5, 10, something like that, 20, maybe 100 in total. And then, if you guys heard of like incubators and accelerators, are you familiar with that, the term? Okay. So another area then is once you get past that kind of that first stage, the next group that's probably a good target would be those accelerators and angel investors. So accelerators are defined programs that are usually run by an organization. They usually last about 12 months, and they're usually companies that are usually have a product, maybe have customers testing the product, and some have revenue, but they're, again, at that first stages of revenue. The accelerator terms vary, but roughly people that participate in accelerators can get anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 towards their business, but they do give up some equity for that, right? And sometimes that amount that they get is in-kind services. So for example, Arch Grants, although that's not really an accelerator, it's more of a grant issuing entity. Capital Innovators is an accelerator in the St. Louis region. They give cash, but they also, a chunk of that is in-kind services. So they give you marketing support services, legal services, financial modeling and planning support services. So it's not necessarily always all in cash. And then venture capital, that group comes in a little bit later. Venture capitalists, although some of them are starting to do some seed investing, which is what accelerators and angel investors do. I should back up. Angel investors are typically high net worth individuals or networks of people who invest in early stage companies, seed stage. There's organizations that you can go to. Arch Angels is one in St. Louis. I don't know how active they've been lately, but they cover the St. Louis metropolitan area. And then the next step, when your business has moved to actually revenue producing, is usually where you can start talking to venture firms. So Cultivation Capital, or have you guys heard of them? So they're an investment firm in St. Louis. They've done very well. But as a rule of thumb, they won't talk to you until you have $50,000 a month in recurring revenue. So, you know, you gotta keep moving through the chain to get to the people that have.
What was the name of that firm?
Cultivation Capital. They're based in St. Louis. They do a lot of, largely do, their focus areas around tech-enabled companies, so it can be across industry sector, but technology and bioscience. But tech-enabled is pretty broad, right? I mean, it's kind of like, to me, what business isn't tech-enabled? I mean, everybody kind of has to be today, right? But tech has to be at the core of how they deliver their product or service. Any other questions? Okay. Then the other opportunity is crowdfunding. Are you guys familiar with crowdfunding platforms, online platforms that you can go out and at the early stage you can present your company and your idea, and your obligation is to give something back to that investor, whether it's equity or I know a guy that participated in one for an e-bike company, and he did the investment and he got one of the e-bikes, you know, one of the first e-bikes off their production line. So sometimes they do some kind of trade like that. But there's different sites available. And, you know, again, even we talked about types of businesses by industry, but also for-profit and nonprofit businesses. So again, make sure when you're talking to people that, and I've lived in both worlds. I've worked for-profit and nonprofit organizations. You know, you got to make sure that's what their focus is, to make sure you're not wasting your time or their time. And there's crowdfunding, GoFundMe platforms that focus on nonprofit, you know, organizations as well. And then grants. Have any of you ever applied for a grant? Yes, no, yeah. Okay, so grants are a wonderful thing because they're good and bad, just like everything else. There's good and bad, and you just have to understand this and weigh it. And grants are usually issued from government entities. So there could be federal grants or state grants that are provided. You know, the whole PPP thing was a loan, but it really acted more like a grant because nobody had to pay anybody back. But there's, you know, the state of Illinois has granting opportunities, as do the feds. But also there's foundations. So those are organizations that are private organizations that are committed to some purpose. Like, have you heard of the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City, based out of Kansas City? Wonderful organization that is focused on helping startup companies. Great resource. If you don't know it, write it down, the Kauffman Foundation. And they have a tremendous website with all kinds of resources on it. So that's a family-based foundation funded by that family, and they have a clear mission and purpose around entrepreneurship. But that it doesn't have to be that. There's all kinds of foundations that work on all different
Yes.
things. So it could be advancing women of color. It could be,
Specific,
yeah, they're
specific,
specific. They're kind of theme oriented. So a lot out there. But so grants, beautiful thing. No repayment, no equity. You're not giving up ownership. But they're, like I said, initiative focused. So you got to know who's right for you, because not everybody's going to be right for you. Someone could be very focused on music, However, there's always strings attached. So often there are reporting requirements. So not only during the grant, let's say I was involved with a grant where we got $500,000 from the feds. And you have to go through the process before you apply for it, but once the grant was issued, they gave it to you in tranches. So you had to say what I needed the money for and what it was going to accomplish. So they didn't just write us a check for $500,000. If we said we were going to hire somebody, they said, go hire that person. We hire the person, okay, let us know, we'll cut that money loose for that staffing job, right? So it's very much a, you told us you were going to do these things, you better do those things.
Right.
And then you've got to, even to get the money, you have to, sometimes it will be given to you in tranches like that, because they don't just want to hand it all over and it doesn't work out. And there is sometimes opportunity to change things. Sometimes they do allow you to go back and say, you know what, we thought we needed $100,000 of the $500,000 for this, but we need it for this. And they can decide if they will allow you to make modifications. Some do, some don't, some will, some won't, okay? So you go through that whole process, and at the end, there's also sometimes reporting requirements. So I've been the benefit of a state grant in Missouri for a nonprofit I was working for. Their reporting requirement goes on for 10 years. Yeah. So again, be aware. Be aware what you're signing up for and going to be held accountable for. Yes?
What do you mean we say reporting for 10 years?
So they wanted, so this nonprofit helped tech startup companies. And we had some key metrics on things like how many companies we helped, how many companies were at what stage, how many companies went on to raise money, investment money, how much did they raise. So they wanted to know as a follow-on, because we were delivering entrepreneur education programs, they wanted to know as a follow-on what the impact was 10 years following. Yeah, right? So we got the money to deliver the entrepreneur education program, and we did that, but they wanted to see the impact. So for 10 years, we had to fill out this form that they largely gave us, but still, it's an obligation you have and something you have to make. Oh my gosh, the we got to get our MOBEC report in, and then you're running around, scrambling around to do that. Yeah. Preparation, the work to be done. Okay, so you got to have a business plan. You got to show that you have thought this through, that there's substance behind what you're doing and why you need the money and how the money is going to be used, and that this is a good investment. And I will tell you, if you can do anything in your brain, shift the thought of writing a business plan as opposed to it being an obligation to your funder, your capital source, this is really important for you. That you're making really sound decisions for your business. It's time consuming, it's work, it takes you away from your day-to-day job, but in the end, the time you spend on this will be truly valuable to you and help you not make decisions that aren't good for you and the business. And the other thing, I've read many business plans. And people tend to focus on the financials, which are absolutely important, and that they're good, sound financials, gotta have that. But I will tell you, you really need to spend time on the competitive market analysis. So, why are you in this business and who else is out there and why is your product better than anybody else's? Because I can tell you in looking at these business plans, people don't do this. And you can feel the air get sucked out of the room because it looks like that business owner, that entrepreneur, hasn't done their homework and research, and it ruins the confidence that you want people to have in you, because you don't know the marketplace. I've seen investors sit in meetings and somebody's talking and somebody's saying, "We have the best product. Don't ever say nobody's doing this. Don't ever say nobody's doing this. Somebody is in some form or fashion." And when people say that, I've seen them sit there and Google go. I just pulled up I see 5 companies that are doing the exact same thing you're doing. Didn't you know about them? So, very important. So the competitive market assessment, please, please, please do that. The other 2 pieces that people get really, I don't know if they get distracted or they're not comfortable with it, is the sales. How are you going to sell this? How are you going to market it? Those are 2 different things. Sales and marketing are 2 different things. And then your operations. So how many people are in your business? What equipment do you need? Do you have the equipment that you need to do this? Can you really deliver, however many guitars in that amount of time? How long does it take to build a guitar? You say you're going to sell 100 guitars. Well, you only have 2 craftsmen, and you say they can only make a custom guitar once every 4 months. There's no way you can sell 100 guitars. You don't have 100 guitars to sell. So those kinds of things, if you don't have that substance, you'll be dead in the water. So all these parts of your business plan are critically important, and the good news is I'm going to share with you how to address these. And if one of these areas makes you really uncomfortable, because we all have different skill sets. I've never met anyone in business that can sit down and write every bit of the business plan perfectly, because some people are better at the financial side of things. Others are better at the sales and marketing or the ops. So you can get help and to develop those parts.
Sorry, it might be a silly question, but the business plan we were working on, it got to be quite large in length. What do you think is the appropriate term or size of something for that?
Hold that thought, because I'm going to take you right there in a minute. Okay? I agree with you. I don't believe that it's about size. I believe it's about substance, and I believe that. Something around 10 pages on the narrative is enough. You should, I don't want to get ahead, but we're going to talk about that specifically. So, good question. Yeah.
At what point would you wager, I guess, doing a pitch deck versus like a business plan, or should they both be done? Because I know. And some investors maybe just want to see like they're okay seeing just like a pitch deck. At first, they are.
Right. They are, right? Okay. So understand the use of the different things. So a pitch deck is a sales tool. And when you go out to investors, they're going to want a pitch deck. They're not going to want your business plan yet. Because they're going to want to just I didn't share with you, but I used to work for a company on the mergers and acquisition team. And so that's why, in addition to my job at I-10, where we help startups with preparing to pitch to investors, I've just seen a god-awful amount of business plans. But I don't see how, and this is my opinion. Some people, particularly in the tech space, which is where I came from, will say, you don't need a business plan, you just need a pitch deck.
I hear that a lot.
Okay.
I see that a lot.
I don't believe that. And here's why I don't believe that. I don't think you can create a good pitch deck unless you've written a good business plan. And I'm talking about the substance. Your business plan might not look pretty, but you've addressed those key business issues, and there's depth there and knowledge that you have and awareness. So I just don't see how anyone can write a good pitch deck. And the other thing is, I think that's a little bit of an East Coast, West Coast thing, where some of those really big savvy investors are, and they do fly by the seat of their pants more, but we're, like I said, that's more in the tech space. And then they get into the technology and they're like, somebody's created something in artificial intelligence. Well, yeah, those are like breakthrough technologies. So I just don't personally don't see how you can create a good pitch deck unless you've written the business plan.
Right. And based on this information you've shared with us, you wouldn't be necessarily talking to an investor until you know,
Yeah,
a bit of
right.
money, and you should have had your business plan already to get started.
Right, yeah. And so, also I'll tell you that if you are talking to investors, and you know, you give the pitch, and they say, this is really cool. I love what you guys are doing. I'm a guitar enthusiast. I want to know more. What it means is they're going to want to know more detail. So once you get them past the pitch deck, they're going to start asking you, let me see your business plan. Let me see, you know, your financials. Let me see, you know, so you still got to have that in the ready. Because if you hook that fish, that's with investors, the process is usually you're going out and you're pitching and you're telling them you want their money, how much money you want, and you know, you're going to give them whatever equity, blah 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 blah, and then if they say I'm interested, that's when you also get into the signing the non-disclosures and all that, and I can talk a little bit about issues with pitch deck and disclosure, but. But no one's going to sign a non-disclosure up front. They aren't. But when you get to that point, you pitch and they say, I'm interested, I want more, I want to dig deeper, and you say, great, sign this non-disclosure. You usually have what's called a deal room or a data room set up, and that's for file sharing. So you would literally, after they sign the non-disclosure, you send them a link, and they go into this deal room, and all of the pertinent documents are there, and it's a lot. That's the beginning of the due diligence process, which is intense, and I can talk about that if you want. But anyway, so yeah, so to answer your question, I think you got to have a business plan. And I go back to the point of it even just being for you. So you are thinking about ideas. You need to spend the time and think them through enough to decide if you want to go through with it. When you put pen to paper, you might find out it doesn't work. You know, I can never make money to make this a sustainable business. Okay, so wake up, computer. Doesn't want to click. Went to sleep on me. Oh. Okay. So the other parts that you'll need to pull together, in addition to having a business plan, and this is kind of deal roomish, but if you're going to go down the path with somebody and you're going to ask them for money, in addition to your business plan, don't be surprised that they ask for information, your tax returns for the business, and maybe even you personally, credit scores. A lot of people say, a lot of times it happens that they'll ask for your business's credit score, and then they'll also ask for your personal ones. I'm just saying, just don't be surprised if you get asked for this kind of information. And then some organizations, even like the grants, they might want a copy of your business license that's current, or a certificate of good standing, which you would get from the state. You go online for like $15, you print it out, you know. They just want to know you're legitimate, right? So these are the kinds of things they're going to ask for. They'll ask for your tax ID numbers, your employee identification number, or whatever. And then if you're doing the grant route, particularly federal grants, not for foundations, but federal grants, you have to have a SAM, which is a System Access Manager or something like that. Anyway, it's a little thing you do online, but it gives you access to their platform and the application process and things like that. So it's just getting on their platform, but they require that you have that. So yeah, so you know, just knowing that, you know, this is like a big bundle of stuff that you have to have and be prepared to share. Okay, so commitments. You know, I always think it's really, 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 really important to know that you understand what you're signing up for. As I said earlier, nothing is free and nothing comes without strings attached. So, you know, running your credit score, your personal credit score, you know, that is a ding on your credit rating. You don't want to be doing that all day long, so you want to be selective and right about who you're signing up with. And then fully understanding the payments, the terms, the interest rates. We talked about being clear-minded and very specific about what are you going to use the funds for, right? So you're asking someone for money, and then are there any like project goals associated with this? If you give me X amount of dollars, I will do this. And that's a very compelling story to tell. Don't just say, give me X. You can't just have half that story. You can't say, give me X amount of dollars. But you got to say, well, for what? So what's the so what? Why is this a good investment for my bank or my foundation or whatever? And then on the equity side, you're giving up ownership. So this is where the financials are really important too, because if today you say, oh, if I could get $100,000 and I could buy that building that I want, this would be so great. But if you're looking at it short-sighted, it's like, are there other parts of the business that are then going to need, are you going to need to buy more equipment?
Right.
And are you going to need to hire more people? So making sure that then you don't say 12 months later, it's like, oh shoot, I asked you for $100,000 for that building, but guess what? I should have asked for 250 because now I'm coming back around and I got to go find another 150 and I got to give up another chunk of ownership. So that gets scary because once you get past that 50% ownership mark, guess what? You lose control of the business. Other people have interest in your business, and they have usually a say. Oftentimes, sometimes with the ownership and equity situation, people might ask for board seats. Again, so not only do they maybe have ownership, but then
They're on the board.
they have influence in your business. Really critical things to consider. Okay, and then the reporting requirements we talked about, whatever those are, don't just stop it, get excited and say, ooh, I have this wonderful grant opportunity and I can get as much as, $250,000 and it fits my business, it fits this, the type of business I am, the stage of my business, what I'm going to use the funds for. Make sure you read all of the requirements that you have to accept and sign up for, and that you're comfortable and capable of doing that. Okay, your business plan. Okay, I'm going to click through this pretty quickly, but there's a tool. Have you guys ever heard of a business canvas, a one-page document that's like your business? Good. Okay, so it's called a business canvas, and there's two types out there. One is for an existing business that's growing or expanding. So wonderful. And then the other one, that's the business model canvas. That was the first canvas that was out there. And then Ash Mariah, who's a tech entrepreneur, came along and he created one for startups. So that's the lean canvas, but it's modeled after the business model canvas. But as you can imagine, questions that need to be answered by startups are a little bit different than by an existing business. So the beautiful thing about this, so that's the business model canvas. I know that's hard to read, but it's one page and there's 9 blocks on it. And it asks you to answer questions in 9 categories, okay? This is all online. Strategizer with a Y is the website. And you can go there, you can download them, you can watch tutorials, all this. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that here. So for existing businesses that are growing, Strategizer. For startups, you want to look at the Lean Canvas, and that's leancanvas.com. And again, great tools and resources on that site. And it'll help you through this one that I pulled, this image. Again, 9 blocks of information. And this one actually kind of tells you what order to answer the blocks in, and there's some theory about that. But the beauty of this to me is, as a business owner, this is your business plan on one page. Okay? This is something as a business owner, once you build it and create it, you should look at this at least once a year and just look at it and say, is all of this still relevant? So it's a really quick, condensed version of your business plan. It's a fabulous place to start. And to answer your question then is, once you create your canvas, whether it's the business model canvas or the lean canvas, then write your business plan from that. So then take each block and write one page. and put your sources in there and your references in there and, you know, why you think you can grow the market 10% and, you know, so that gives you, it's almost like us old school people that had to do outlines when you wrote in class. You guys, you just have to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
In my day, you had to start with an outline. Remember? You couldn't just sit down and start. You had to start with, it's kind of that concept, and it keeps your head focused, and it doesn't send you down a path where all of a sudden you're 8 pages in and you're still talking about, you know, your key proposition. It's like, whoa, 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 right? So really love these tools and highly recommend it. So, time to get busy, right? So, researching what the best options are going to be for you and your business is really critically important. So I say create or update that business plan, starting with one of the Canvas models, whatever's right for your business stage, and then start writing the narrative and try to just keep it to 1 page. 9 pages won't kill anybody, right? Now, that's not your financials, because your financials are just what they are, right? P&L, balance sheet, if you have equipment inventory. So, but the narrative part of it, I really feel like you can knock that out, you know, in 10 pages or less. And then your financials. So it's a question of, if you're an existing business, they're going to ask for historicals, like year-to-dates, for sure. Which you should be able to pull out of your system if you're doing QuickBooks or whatever. But then that pro forma, so that projection. So if you're going to, you know, get a loan and it's a 5-year loan, you ought to look at your pro forma for 5 years. Beyond that, I don't think is worth anything, because who knows in the world what's going to happen in 5 years. So your pro forma is kind of based on your business, and your needs should be anywhere from probably 2 to 5 years. Your future projections. But that tool is what you're going to look at to say, if I am going to go get this loan and it's going to cost me this, I'm going to use it to do these things, how does it, you know, does it meaningfully, positively impact your business? Okay, so what to expect? It takes a lot of work. It does. I mean, you know, raising money, finding capital. I've been involved in 4 different tech startups, and as the president of the company, it was at least 50% of my time. It's work. So just be prepared that you're going to have to put it in. You may likely get turned down. It's the reality of the world. But the good news is, well, first of all, don't take it personal, because it really isn't personal, but it's about how you fit into that company's portfolio. And I've seen some of the best opportunities get turned down also because, for instance, in the world of venture capital, they may not have any more money in their bucket for that type of investment. So, you know, sometimes it is just what it is. So don't take it personal, and the good news is there are many, many options out there. So I think the best thing you can do is get help from experts and people that can help you get that business plan written, get those financials created, so that you know you're going after the right money. All money is not good money. It is not, I will tell you that. All money is not good money. It's good to hear yes, but be careful, you know, what you're signing up for, right? So here's some resources. I'm going to put these on a page and email them to Sarah so she can share, because you have everybody's email, do you, from the sign up? Okay, so I know this is really hard to read, but I think that the key takeaway here is there's an incredible amount of helpful resources out there for you. And actually, every one I'm looking at on the left side is a free resource. So these aren't things like you're going to have to pay to get help, right? So use it, get the help. The business model canvases, I told you about the Strategizer and Lean Canvas websites. For grants, there's 2 databases, grants.gov, which is the federal one, and look at Illinois too. Illinois has a website for grants. But then foundations are really kind of under the radar. So those are the people like well, you know, we all know Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but, you know, the people like the Kauffman Foundation and that, many of the, unlike Kauffman and Bill and Melinda Gates, many foundations don't hardly even advertise or things.
Yeah.
So this foundation database is really critical. And it also will help you pinpoint. So remember we talked about with grants, they're usually like initiative focused. So finding the ones that really align with your business and going after those. And then, you know, community organizations, events like these, you know, that Alton Main Street so graciously hosts and provides. They have more workshops coming up. I think some on marketing. Did I see one on marketing, or did you just have one on marketing?
We just had a 3-part series on virtual or digital marketing.
Yeah.
Yep, and you can find the recordings for those on our website. And we are soliciting input from our entrepreneurs and small businesses on the topics for the next session. So please do grab that sign-up sheet. And if you have any particular ideas of things that would be really useful to you, please do jot that down there, and we will find an expert to come in and present on that.
And then I'll also say, the area universities and colleges. My expertise is more marketing and operations, not financials. I went back to school and took, you know, a class to hone my skills. There's some great, you know, classes that you could go to help you, you know. Not that I want to be an accountant or anything, but, you know, the ability to understand financial statements and read financial statements is absolutely critical as a business owner. And then funding sources, you know, your local banks obviously are a resource. There's a great, moneygeek.com has a great article on business loans for women. So funding for women-owned businesses. There's a lot out there.
Tons.
People of color.
Tons.
Yeah, fabulous. We talked about grants.gov. Also, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has an article like on 50 different small business grant programs. So again, another great resource. Online, if you're going to do that route, Loan Builder, which is a subsidiary of PayPal, for some small business loans that are short-term and smaller in dollar, as well as Cabbage, which is an American Express website for small businesses, and they have other resources there too. All these places have other, you know, websites, and organizations provide other resources on their site. Crowdfunding, you've got many platforms: Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe, and then the SBA, the Small Business Administration, is you could go down a rabbit hole with them, not only on funding sources, but just also supporting resources. So with that, I'll just stop talking, and probably tired of me talking, and let you ask any questions you may have.